1926.55a. Employers must limit an employee's exposure to any substance listed in Table 1 or 2 of this section in accordance with the following. 1926.55a. 1. Substances with limits preceded by c. Ceiling values. An employee's exposure, as determined from breathing zone air samples, to any substance in Table 1 of this section with a permissible exposure limit preceded by c. must at no time exceed the exposure limit specified for that substance. If instantaneous monitoring is not feasible, then the employer must assess the ceiling as a 15-minute time-weighted average exposure that the employer cannot exceed at any time during the working day. 1926.55a. 2. Other substances 8-hour time-weighted averages. An employee's exposure, as determined from breathing zone air samples, to any substance in Table 1 or 2 of this section with a permissible exposure limit not preceded by c. must not exceed the limit specified for that substance measured as an 8-hour time-weighted average in any work shift. 1926.55b. To achieve compliance with paragraph a. of this section, administrative or engineering controls must first be implemented whenever feasible. When such controls are not feasible to achieve full compliance, protective equipment or other protective measures shall be used to keep the exposure of employees to air contaminants within the limits prescribed in this section. Any equipment and technical measures used for this purpose must first be approved for each particular use by a competent industrial hygienist or other technically qualified person. Whenever respirators are used, their use shall comply with Section 1926.103. 1926.55c. Paragraphs a. and b. of this section do not apply to the exposure of employees to airborne asbestos, tremolite, anthophyllite, or actinolite dust. Whenever any employee is exposed to airborne asbestos, tremolite, anthophyllite, or actinolite dust, the requirements of Section 1926.1101 shall apply. 1926.55d. Paragraphs a. and b. of this section do not apply to the exposure of employees to formaldehyde. Whenever any employee is exposed to formaldehyde, the requirements of Section 1910.1048 of this title shall apply. Note: review link for Table 1 to Section 1926.55 Permissible exposure limits for airborne contaminants.